Oh, there's John Reiner.
Hi, guys.
Hello,
Hi,
John.
gals. Good to see you.
Okay, roll call. Chuck.
Present.
John Clifton is absent. Roger.
Yes, sir.
Mac Parkhill.
Here.
Tim Hensley. John Reiner.
Here, present.
Jan. You out there, Jan? Mike Keogh.
Present.
And Bonnie.
Here.
All right. I call the meeting to order. Kirby, you got the flag? Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United
States
States
of
Okay.
America,
to the republic for which it stands,
One
one
nation,
nation,
under
God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Well, we've already had the roll call. Has everybody had a chance to review the meeting minutes from January 1st?
Good afternoon, everyone. Michael Kehoe brought it to my attention before the meeting that in the passage where we spoke about the library and the project that he's working on, that he had contacted a local artist when in fact it was the library. So the minutes that you were sent are 100% the same except for that caveat. So what you'll be voting on today, what you read the other day, but with that key piece of information changed.
Okay. I will entertain to approve the minutes
I move
with
to approve.
amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, well, we don't have Dana yet, so we'll wait on item number 4 until it shows. Number 5 was the Dublin Veterans address change. And if you remember, Mike asked the question why it was a .com instead of a .org or a .gov. I don't know that we have an answer to that yet. As I remember it, somebody suggested it be changed. Mike?
Yes, I can comment on that. I did receive an email after the meeting. The investigation indicated that at the time, the .com was available, and with the changes in the internet identifications these days, the .com is no longer designation for a for-profit. Therefore, it's available for use, and that was available. That was the explanation why it was chosen. She was also looking at the possibility of changing that to the other, but that was the explanation at the time. No further information has been received since.
All right, so do you have an objection to using .com, I guess? Do we need to dig further and push it or just let it ride?
Now that I know that, I have no objection.
Okay. Anybody else have a problem with DublinVeterans.com? Okay. So be it. Mike, you want to update us on the Veterans Corner and interactive displays?
The update will be very brief. As may recall in the last meeting, Dana indicated that it would be appropriate to work with a person from the communications staff. I know there's been some churn within that staff. We are waiting for identification of the person to work with us. So there really has not been any further movement on that project.
Okay.
Mike, I can check in with Dana and just see where we are in that process and get back to you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is a similar but maybe separate project, doing a virtual tour of veterans' graves in the Dublin cemeteries, primarily Dublin Cemetery, but there are veterans in some of the other cemeteries, which eventually we'd like to get to also. Two things, the Historical Society has agreed to pick it up as a project to help create the story for each of the veterans that are buried there. And my concept of this is that you would go to Dublin Cemetery, find a veteran's grave, identify the name, and be able to pull up a little bit of their background on a smartphone or an iPad or whatever device you have. One of the issues I saw early on, which we're doing with the virtual tour of the Grounds of Remembrance, is the QR code. If you took it to the finite, you'd have to have a QR code at each gravesite. You're not going to stick it on the headstone, so it would have to be a marker that was placed next to the gravestone. Unfortunately, when they go in there with the mowers, they're not always willing to avoid those markers. We've had several instances where veterans' markers have been mauled by the mowers and had to be replaced. So that didn't seem like a logical conclusion. I subsequently had a chat with Christine Nardecchia, who's the volunteer coordinator for the city of Dublin. And we were just chatting, and I told her about this project because a couple of years ago, she led the project to create a database of all those veterans' graves, of all the graves actually, but the veterans' graves are highlighted and you can pull up that database and identify a gravestone and get the name of the person that's interred there. Excuse me. She got excited and said, well, you know, Leadership Dublin is looking for projects. Leadership Dublin is an annual training event. They have volunteers that want to enhance their knowledge of Dublin and become leaders within the Dublin community. And she said, I'll turn it over to them. So I had a meeting with them on Tuesday. Fortunately, they have at least two people in Leadership Dublin this year that are IT professionals. And so they've taken on the challenge of identifying a system that would, I just lost all your pictures. Are you there?
Yeah.
Yes, I guess you're there. Bonnie, are you there?
I'm here.
That they would find a different system that we could use to, yeah, it's going crazy. I don't know if it's my computer or are we having trouble with WebEx, Kirby?
I'm still
Um,
hearing you fine, Jeff.
Right. I think you might just be having like network problems, on your end, but we can still hear you great and we understand what you're saying.
Okay, so
That-
at any rate, one of their missions is to identify a different system that we could use so that when a person goes into the cemetery, they can get the information on a given veteran that's interred there. The second part of it that they were given is to do some research on up to 25 veterans. And I owe them 25 names that they could start with, and they will begin the process of getting information on these veterans. And eventually we'll turn it over to Tom Holton's group to kind of smooth out the edges on the language and whatever, and write the story. They seem really charged up about this, and it's great. So that's where that stands. That project is probably going to move a little bit because Leadership Dublin doesn't go on for. John, do you know how long that program runs?
No, I don't know when the conclusion date is. There's usually a final meeting with them, and that sort of launches that group. But no, I'm not familiar with that this year. I really don't know. Because of this whole Zoom
Okay.
COVID thing's got everything screwed up.
Right.
I think they're typically 1-year program, Jeff. At least the
Yeah.
one in Columbus is a 1-year program.
Well,
But
at any rate,
I can't give you the
they're
dates.
working on the project, and that's fine. They'll be pushing. So it's good to have friends. Okay,
So
we're
Jeff
still waiting.
contains the listing of, like what Christine was talking about, the listing that a previous group did of all of the people that are in the
Oh,
grave.
the database of
Cemetery, yeah,
the database of the graves.
yes.
You would like to see the database? Is that it?
No, I'm
I can get you the link that takes you there, instructions on how to use it. It's kind of interesting. It's a sky view down on the cemetery, and when you blow it up a little bit, suddenly you get yellow colored gravestones, and that's the veteran. And then you click on it, and it'll tell you who's buried there.
So there's
So the idea would be to tie in.
contains that. Anybody know?
I'm sorry.
Does anybody know who maintains that in order? So new,
Well, the city maintains it. Parks, well, I think GIS, their information systems, and Parks and Recs has some responsibility for it because the cemetery is actually part of the Parks Department. So between the two, they maintain that. Whenever a veteran is retired, they add them to the database.
Bonnie, if you're looking for access to that database, I could get it for you.
But if you'd like to see the database,
I would. I'm just trying to think about when we're looking at the core of veterans' graves and getting more information. Once we collect that the first time with Leadership Dublin, then for any new that goes in, how does it? Who maintains the database for our current? Now we're looking forward to the more in-depth information. And
yeah,
how
that's an interesting question because I probably can't answer that. One of the issues with doing this is the veteran has been interred more than 19 years. You can go to services and get the DD 214 on that individual, which would give you a lot of background information. If it's less than 19 years, then you have to be a family member to approve it. So we haven't solved that issue yet. But my suspicion is that what we would do is when there's an interment of, and the city already knows that, when they open the grave, that somebody would interview a family member at that point and say, can we have the information on the veteran? So that might be the historical group, might be my Legionnaires. They're going to do some of this sort of thing. I see Dana's joined us. Hi, Dana. Are you there?
Everybody, great to see you. Sorry I'm late. It's great to see you.
So any questions on that project?
Jeff, if I could just hop in here for 1 second. Mac, for whatever reason, your mic is picking up the audio and it's making an echo. So I'm going to mute you until you're ready to speak, and then I'll request to unmute. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, Dana disappeared again. You there, Dana? No.
He will be right back on.
Okay. So are there any questions on that project? All right. As soon as he comes back, he can talk a little bit about Purple Heart. So, Dana, you're up.
Sorry. Okay.
Purple Heart.
So Purple Heart. Okay. Well, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to jump off other meeting and jump in here. The Purple Heart, what I offered to them, because I just was struggling with trying to get something worked out, to be honest with you. The challenge with the Purple Heart organization is that they have a certain way they like to do things, and they're pretty focused on that. I think I've shared that with you all before. They really look at a proclamation almost as a legislative process in interacting with other cities. In our city, a proclamation is a statement by the mayor on behalf of city council, as John knows. And it doesn't normally take a vote of council or anything like that. They're used to going to cities where they do this sort of proclamation. And it seems to be more of a thing in other cities than it's important in what we do, and we're lifting something up and proclaiming something. And there just seems to be this mix of language that it's taken me months to get my head around. So the bottom line is to find a compromise with this organization. What I was suggesting is that they come to a council meeting. The mayor will issue the proclamation, which, by the way, council has stated their support of, right, John? And said, Mayor, go ahead and issue and declare Dublin a Purple Heart city, declare a Purple Heart Day. So we've got all that. And the mayor issues that on the mayor's own. And they're used to doing this at council meetings as part of a ceremony. I said, okay, well, the best thing I think we can do is go ahead and bring them to a council meeting, issue the proclamation, and then let them do the ceremony that they always do there. What I was trying to get them to do was to let the mayor issue a proclamation at a ceremony that would happen whenever it worked best for us as a community, as like a community event. You with me? They'd have nothing to do with that. It had to happen at a council meeting. Like, okay, so let me try to find. So I laid out a council meeting date for them. I don't know if you all saw it, which is, I think it's the last meeting. It's a meeting in July. I think Kirby is the date I threw out there, or Deidre. That is immediately before Purple Heart Day, which is August the 7th. That's a Saturday, which, by the way, would be in the middle of the Irish Festival if we do the Irish Festival, but we may be doing something like an Irish Festival. We don't know yet. We're working on it. So that's a kind of a busy weekend, but we'll still do Purple Heart Day on August 7th forever, and there's a way to do that. But to do a ceremony on August 7th might be a bit of a challenge, but they just, which I think we were going to do anyway, or try to get it done, but they wanted it done at a council meeting. So my suggestion is come to a council meeting. We'll do it I think it's the last week of July.
Dana, that's July 26th.
Right, so July 26th, that's the closest meeting prior to Purple Heart Day, so that we have all this done and squared away in time for Purple Heart Day. You with me? So that's why I offered that to them, and now they're trying to check their schedule to see if they can be present on that day. If they can't be present on that day, then I'm going to start backing it up, like into June, in order that I get them there before Purple Heart Day. So that's a long story, gang, but they're really tied to council meetings is the bottom line. So I'm trying to find a solution.
Could you, I'm not trying to tell city council what to do, but maybe you have a special council meeting on a day that works for a ceremony?
We could, but they're really tied. You'd be surprised, Jeff, how tied they are to like council chambers and things. I mean, it's really weird animal. It's a weird animal. Now you'll see pictures of them outside. Like he really talked about Mason. So they went to a council meeting at City Hall in Mason and they did this event, but then they went outside, and right outside Mason, I've been by it, so I've seen it myself. Right outside Mason City Hall is their Veterans Memorial, right on the same grounds as the municipal building. So that's kind of what they're tied to. And I've tried to explain to them on multiple occasions, we'd love to do a ceremony at Grounds of Remembrance or, somewhere in the city.
Right.
We'd like you to come to that, wherein the mayor will be standing there with the proclamation.
Huh.
Not interested.
Dana, it sounds like you covered it, buddy.
I know, sorry.
I saw a lot of Purple Heart City signs going south. Drove down, was down in Carolina, drove down there, and they got it out there on their corporate entryways. Purple Heart City, I was really surprised how many
Yep.
people have already got into this.
There's a lot of them, and we would put up some signage and the like, and do some things which we've talked about. So.
Okay, Dana, did you hear my pitch on the Veterans Grave project?
I know about it. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We've got Leadership Dublin involved now, and so
Yeah, that's great. We can help support that.
let's talk a little bit about Memorial Day. Lori's out there somewhere listening, I think. What are your thoughts on Memorial Day? Are we going to be able to open up by then?
I think our recommendation was to continue to do what we did last year, only because, we're still at a point where there's a lot of hope, with the vaccine and people getting the vaccine and starting to open things up. But I think what we're seeing is, we're seeing strides in that, and we're watching the numbers. We watch the percentages. We're still a red county, by the way. The governor hasn't lifted orders yet. Public health hasn't changed their orders yet. So what we're trying to do is guess what and when things are going to change. And it's, I don't have a crystal ball and none of you do. So it's kind of hard to tell exactly. I think you'll see things starting to lift by that time frame. But the problem with all of this is we have to plan and do logistics and put things in place in advance. And we have to lock things in. Not so much with Memorial Day isn't so expensive, although I don't see us doing the luncheon and all that kind of stuff. And I know that's not really something that concerns you typically anyway. So we're not going to do that. But I think as far as the ceremony goes, I think we recommend, I thought what I heard staff was recommending was to do what we did last year and stay consistent with that, just because we're in a very transitional period here with the getting the vaccines and finding out whether things are going to be opened up. So that's where we're at now. That's open for discussion, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, my guys really didn't want to be involved with St. Patrick's Day because they wanted to march believe it or not, the old guys want to march. So that's fine. And, you know, we did the thing last year, we did the bridge, we did the cemetery, that sort of stuff. So they would probably go for that again, but they're certainly hoping that eventually we open this thing up so we have people.
Well, of course we want to do that. I want to do that last year, but you know, we kind of are where we are, and to think that we wouldn't do that, you know, no, we'll definitely get back to the way we were. It's just a matter of when and how. I mean, if you all feel like, well, I'm going to follow public health guidelines, that's going to be the answer first and foremost.
Well, I understand.
But those orders haven't been lifted yet, and I can't guess when they will be. They're being lifted a little bit at a time, and they're loosening things up a little bit at a time. Well, now, you know, will we record it per se and do it and then have it ready? And then the day before the governor lift everything and we could have done it in person? I'd guarantee you that's probably what'll happen. But I won't guarantee it, but I could bet on it. But that's the chance we take, you know, so.
All right. Well,
So I want to hear what's your feelings on this. What's the collective group? What do you all think we should be doing? It's not what I determine we do.
Sure.
I just telling you what the requirement, you know, what we're up against. So give me your thoughts.
Well, Dana, what kind of lead time do you need within your group if the health issues were lifted? What kind of lead time is it? 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
I'd say,
a week?
I'd say to be fair, probably a month.
A month, okay.
And the reason I say that isn't because we couldn't get the logistics together and set up the chairs, and you know, that's 5
Right.
days. It's more about notifying people and letting them know. And then if there are any constraints on it, then it's educating the public about, okay, this is how it's going to look when you show up. You're not all going to gather up. You're going to spread out through the cemetery. You know what I mean? It's going to be different. It may be better than last year in terms of in person, but it's still probably going to be somewhat different. It's not going to be normal. I don't think there's any way it would be absolutely normal. So as far as throwing it together, that's not the hard part. In fact, that effort's more Jeff's than it is ours. Because he's got to get pieces and parts and people committed, right, Jeff? So that's probably more your challenge than ours.
So really what you're saying is the last day in April would be a drop dead day.
I believe so. I think that would be fair. Yeah.
Just a comment from my perspective, I think the way you're leaning and following the public health guidelines is the most logical approach. I think most of the citizenry is thinking July 4th because that's the thought that's been placed in their mind by the president in his comments with regard to the vaccines being available and distributed more widely and everything else. So I would certainly expect that this Memorial Day, it's not normal yet. It may be better than last year, but still not anywhere near normal. Just my thought.
Roger.
Here's an interesting thought. We just had the garden show, just like we've always had the garden show. All those people, they had timed entries, but the car show and the Arnold all got canceled. It was very interesting. So I went down and talked to the guy who ran it about it. I said, "How are we having this thing?" And what he did, and this may not help us in our particular venue. I'm sure it wouldn't, but he said, "John, what I did is I transferred it over from a visual entertainment to a financial thing. And under that, and this goes to our Irish festival," he said, under a financial thing, we got around the governor's dictates. And I was thinking about the Irish festival. This is sort of a segue or an out of the way thing, but we have a lot of vendors and a lot of booths. And I think if the entertainers, we had the 6-foot seating thing, we could probably just go right ahead under what this guy did. This guy's name is Steve Zonars. And probably start working on our Irish festival because he said that's how they did it. So I did talk to Allison about calling him up. She hasn't called him up yet, But, and it's not exactly, there's no way we could make our military stuff anything like this, listed as a commercial venture. But it does open up the door for other possibilities for us, which is sort of exciting. So we can sort of work our way out of this hole. So that's how they did it. I just couldn't figure it out. Same thing, gardens, all the vendors, same show, different, just as if it was any other year.
Yeah.
Instead, by changing the name and changing the structure, we were able to put it on. I thought, wow, pretty clever.
I don't have an issue doing Memorial Day if you want to do it in person. We just have to make sure that whoever's there is significantly spread out and, or, spread out by this. At least we need to prepare, I think, for people to masks, social distancing, all those same rules would still probably apply, but I would imagine they will apply at that point.
Yeah.
And those will still continue for a while. And that's all okay. I mean, the difference between this year and last year are people understand that, and they know generally what they need to do and abide by. And if you're seating people, in chairs, we'll just have to spread them out a bit. You're going to take up more space. That's all. And so we'll just need to accommodate the speakers and things like that to do that. So when you're conducting your ceremony, Jeff, then how do you do that? It's not that much modification. You're a little bit more spread out. You're raising, lowering the flag. Your trumpeter, if you have one, or bugler can be far away, and your honor guard can wear protective masks, or not protective masks, but masks, and be a little bit further apart.
Yeah, the honor guard is not really the issue because we can spread out enough to do it.
Right.
And the only area on the parade route that becomes probably an issue is the bridge. That gets pretty dense. Once we get off the bridge, they can spread out on the street, and once you're in the cemetery, you can.
Well, see, there's been no approval for
disperse pretty well.
There's been no approval for parades yet. So if it is a parade and people are gathering, that probably is a non-starter right there. So you may have to do it a little differently than you have before. When it comes, I don't know, we'll have to vet that with Franklin County Public Health, which we can do. I mean, we can ask them if they would approve it at this point. But we'll have to have people dispersed and not gathering so much on the bridge. You with me? That we'll still have to control that.
I understand, and I agree. I mean, but that's the only place it really gets super dense. Along the street, they're side by side for the most part. You get family clusters, I guess, that are front and back, but for them, not too bad. And again, in the cemetery, with the new speaker system, you ought to be able to shout them down from several hundred yards away.
Should be able to. And by the way, when you mention a parade, it's really just going to be your honor guard, right? Because the high school bands are not performing. They were not at the St. Patrick's Day parade.
Although that could change too. I mean, they're allowing prom dances. So I'm sure they're going to have music in there, maybe a DJ instead of a band, but and they're allowing wedding dances, that sort of thing. So,
Bonnie, do you have any sense of what the high school bands are doing?
They are not performing because they have an instrument. So they're blowing in they're just not performing. Well, I don't see the band. I mean, everything has been canceled, and they're going to be on the conservative side to ensure, because the students aren't getting vaccinated, at least not yet. And by the end of May, I don't think even the 16 and up ones will not be completely vaccinated by then, if we're using that. So I don't see the bands being a part of that. Quartets or something like that, as long as they're far enough away from everybody, that's an option, where you're just putting 4 people and they're way far away from everybody else. It's not like 100 kids are out there. I would, I would be on the more conservative side of, if you're given my opinion, as long as we can see in a virtual environment, what is Memorial Day all about, and our local Memorial Day. That's important to me and to many people that I know, is that we see something that's going on at the Dublin Cemetery, and we see something that is going on at the Grounds of Remembrance. And we as a community get to see those things and what we typically see on Memorial Day.
Along those lines, Bonnie, you'll be interested. I've asked John Wood to be our speaker this year, so we'll see if he comes in. John Wood's
He's a great
social studies teacher at Scioto High School, and has run several veterans programs through the years. So, Mac, you got anything? Turn him on, Kirby. Kirby?
Okay, am I on?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay,
You're good.
I agree with Bonnie. I think there's just, we're just about 2 months too early on the Memorial Day. I have a feeling that by July 4th, hopefully we'll be able to have these type of things, but I think we're pushing it a little too hard if we try to make it happen just to make it happen. It's certainly an extremely significant day, as it should be, but I think the circumstances today are such that even though they're moving in the right direction, there's still going to be a lot of question in another couple months. So I would propose that we just once again delay the formality that we had normally been going through until next year.
Roger?
I would agree with
Roger.
Mac and Bonnie.
Are you on, Roger?
So I'd agree with Mac and Bonnie.
Okay. All right, so what else do we have? Other new business? Anybody have other new business to talk?
Hey, so, hey, Jeff, just real quick, so is the consensus of the committee then that we do what we did last year? And can you do that?
Well, it looks like it. Got 1, 2. All right. All those who think that we should do a virtual Memorial Day, so signify by raising your hand. Okay, so that's 6 of them. We're missing 2, 3, but that's probably a majority. So looks like we'll go.
Okay, thank you for the direction on that. We really do appreciate it.
I would really like to be a part of developing that and getting some students involved that have a passion for veterans. Really like to be.
We used to do that. As part of the virtual, they will incorporate John Nichols, my neighbor, who's the guy that does all those videos for the city, will interview some students and get their input. If you have particular students you know of that you want to nominate, why don't you send me a note and I'll make sure they get included.
I just love seeing multiple generations. The veterans are many different generations, and I like our community to see all of that.
Bonnie, is this an opportunity to integrate some of the students who are about to step into the military?
Absolutely. And by that time, we already know who they are because we do a military commitment day earlier in the month. Usually at the beginning of May, we have a military commitment day of all of our seniors that are moving on to serve in the military. So we can get some of those involved. But we also have plenty of students at all three high schools that have family members, and they're definitely committed to the military in some way or another as well.
Bonnie, how are they going to do the military commitment day? Are they going to have a ceremony like they've had in the past, or are they?
That's still being discussed. I know that we can do it in an environment that it's not too crowded. I know we can do that.
I mean, we've had the color guard involved a couple of years in that event, and it's always good. So
I'll check into that and get back with you, Jeff. So you can at least have a date.
good. Other new business? Okay. Looks like next meeting is Thursday, May 20th, which is the week before Memorial Day, probably a good time. Unless somebody has a reason that we need to meet in April. Anybody have a problem with the next meeting being May 20th? Not hearing any objection, not hearing anything. I'll take that as, no, we don't. What's that, John? You're muted. Okay. All right, next meeting is Thursday, May 20th. Anything else for the good of the order? No. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Right.
Have a good day, folks.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a great weekend.